live presentation. Hopefully not my last NC Live presentation. So the title Networking More Than Just Who You Know. When I say that, it's not that I'm saying who you know doesn't matter, but there's a lot of steps that from the idea of building your network to having a healthy, growing network of people. And a lot of those steps will lead to professional development opportunities. So we're going to talk a little bit about those today. Just a little bit about me. I'm the community engagement librarian for the Hickory Public Library. I've been working in public libraries for about 16 years. My first job was as a book page, shelving books at my local library. I have specialized in community engagement programming and outreach for about 10 years. And community engagement is a very forward-facing role. There's a lot of interaction outside of the library. So networking kind of goes hand in hand with doing this kind of job. So everything I've learned, a lot of it has been just from experience. So before we get started, there's a Menti code at the top. I would just love to hear about what networking means to you and how would you describe it? So I'll give you guys just a couple minutes to input your answers. Making connections. Schmoozing, that's a great word. Informal interactions, professional connections. So while you guys are inputting your answers, I'm going to just talk a little bit about how I describe networking and think about networking. So there's that quote that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And while part of it is true, who you know can matter and is important. What you know can be the leveraging point to get you a job, especially if you are job hunting. So, for example, you know somebody who works at a library. And so you ask them, hey, there's a job opening here. Could you refer me to somebody who works at the library? If you don't have a strong enough relationship with that person, they may not want to refer you because they don't want to put themselves out there. And even if they do refer you, the person they refer you to may not be in charge of hiring at the library. So that referral may not be that effective. So as this is why it's so important to develop not just a network of individuals, but also a unique skill set that can be achieved through networking. So all of your answers are awesome. And it brings me to this quote, which is about technology, that a network consists of two or more computers that are linked in order to share resources. So networking can't happen alone. You have to do it with other people. And a good network shares things like trends in your field of work, job openings, resources, opportunities for professional development. So those connections are the prime, like the base of all network building. So I would also like to hear about what some of your networking challenges have been. That way, if something comes up that's not covered in the presentation, I can maybe kind of have an idea to stick it in there for you guys. Finding something interesting to say. Sometimes it's hard to know just what to say at all in networking. When you're getting started, it can be very awkward. Making introductions, that's a big one. How do you just go up and start talking to people? Maintaining relationships, not knowing where to start, meaningful connections, following up, getting into a tight knit group. That's a good one. That one's hard. I think the answer to that is persistence. You have to keep trying. Common goals. Okay, don't have anyone to network with, and money isn't available to go to conferences. Getting in the room. Okay. Being an introvert, not wanting a cold call. Okay. So there's that awkward, like feels awkward, right? So hopefully today we're going to talk about some ways to help you not feel so awkward while you're doing your networking. So let's talk a little bit about how we could do that. So first, I just want to talk about why networking matters. So for the common thing that people think about when you have a network is job hunting. And that's where that idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know comes into play. But job hunting and resumes go hand in hand, and networking is a really great way to build your resumes, especially if you take advantage of opportunities to gain library experience, even if you have never worked in a library, especially library school students who are coming fresh out of school. I think most library professionals know how hard it can be to get your foot in the door if you've never had library experience. So we'll talk a little bit about what kind of connections you can make to help, put on your resume for jobs down the road. Networking can be great for promotions. If you're taking advantage of some of these professional development opportunities, you're going to grow your skill set that help you make management consider you for promotions down the road. And some of these opportunities are great, especially if you are interested in ultimately going into management or administration positions. Programming. If you're responsible for programs at your library, utilizing a strong community network is an excellent way to find presenters at a low to no cost to your library, which is great if you don't have a very big budget. Friendship. Friendship is an unexpected benefit of networking because you're going to ultimately be connecting with like-minded individuals, which has the potential to create meaningful, long-lasting relationships that go just beyond the professional realm. And personal growth. So we talked about how it can be awkward, how it's hard to sometimes talk to people. So networking really does require self-reflection and some soul searching, figuring out, what you want, what you're good at, what your strengths are, because having that foundation will help you talk to other people. So there are three personal networks, and we're going to talk mostly about professional and a little bit about community today. But I just want to touch on what these networks are and what they encompass. So your individual network is the venues that you frequent on a regular basis. It's not a formal networking opportunity or organization. They're formed in your day-to-day life interactions, and they don't serve a specific purpose other than that human connection. Your community network is a collaboration among local groups representing the diversity of the region's population and perspectives. And these populations come together often to address a specific need in your community, such as local economy or quality of life. And your professional network provides a forum for career advancement. Notice that's career advancement, not jobs, which is part of it, but career advancement encompasses a lot more than that. Where professional relationships are used to secure different jobs and opportunities. This professional networking requires visibility and really strong relationship management. So that was another thing that came up in challenges. And in the middle of all of these networks is you, because these networks are going to overlap. So for example, say you go to the farmer's market and you see somebody there every week, and you find out that that person at the farmer's market serves on your library board. So you have an individual connection that could turn into a professional connection. There's a lot of ways that these can overlap. And when you're talking about library outreach and engagement, you're going to see a lot of that community and professional overlapping. So I just wanted to give some examples of where you can meet people to do this networking. If you have any kind of a local professional organization, like Hickory has the Hickory Young Professionals, and they have coffee meetups, and sometimes they do like training summits. So if you have something like that in your community, I would definitely look into it. At the very least, you could do leadership trainings and you could get connected on a local level. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, even if your ultimate goal is to secure a library job. Now, if your ultimate goal is engagement in your community, those local professional meetings are excellent. Conferences, trainings, social media, professional organizations, we're going to talk all about that later. Community networking can happen with civic organizations such as your Kiwanis, your Rotary. It can happen through volunteering in your personal time, a faith-based gathering, business associations, chamber meetings, things like that. That's how you're going to build that community network. And your individual network is going to come from the grocery store or people you see at the gym, any sports clubs or book clubs, your neighbors, social events. So it's just anywhere that you're going in your day-to-day life. So relationship management is very important in networking. These are the 4 things that I recommend you do to continue a relationship with somebody. So I think maintaining contact is very important. And this can be something really small, like just sending a message, hey, how you doing? How's work over at the library? Anything exciting going on? It doesn't have to be super in-depth. But I think, if you don't maintain some kind of contact with somebody, they might forget who you are. I don't know if anyone else has like a Facebook profile where you haven't talked to somebody in a long time and then they change their last name or they put their middle name instead of their last name and you're like, I don't know who this person is. So you want to have that regular contact so that you don't end up being forgotten. Leaving on good terms applies to jobs. So that's like leaving with 2 weeks notice. And if you're doing an exit interview, even if you had a bad experience at that job, trying to express that in a professional way instead of dumping a bunch of negativity. Celebrating success. So if you are connected with somebody on LinkedIn and you see they got a new job, you can like their post, just write congratulations, do little things like that to show that you're supportive to the people in your network, and sharing resources. I think that sometimes people have a tendency to hoard what they know because they think it's going to make them and them alone more successful. Now, in libraries, we definitely have an open-minded sharing policy, if you will. And that's an awesome part about libraries is we're always sharing ideas and services and concepts. But I just want to point out in your personal professional goals to be an open resource as well, because the most successful people elevate others and they collaborate. So if you know something and somebody comes and asking you, do you know this resource? Can you help me find this? If you become the person who's sharing ideas, that could draw other people to you. Oh, you should ask Dacy. She might know the answer to that. And now you have a chance to grow some networking outside of just a formal networking event. Be visible. You have to be seen to network. I'm going to use this term a lot throughout the presentation. If you do something noteworthy, even if it's just, you made a poster and it got accepted for a conference and you're doing a poster presentation, share it. Talk about it on LinkedIn. Share your successes, because if you work really hard on something and it's something to really celebrate and you don't tell anybody, then nobody's going to know. So you want to share your successes. That helps increase your visibility. And visibility is going to be really great for job hunting and for meeting new people. So I know this is really scary. Don't worry. You're going to figure it out. Even if you have to fake it till you make it, just act like, just take on that confidence of Michael Scott. So I'm going to move into professional networking and how we do that, what you can do. So before you start your networking journey, you should get yourself ready. I would spend some time thinking about what are your goals in your network. Are you trying to grow your career, get a promotion, secure a job? Are you trying to connect with your community through outreach, get in touch with your stakeholders? Are you trying to advance your library services? So maybe you want to offer new circulating items or a specialty collection or your interlibrary loan offerings. And maybe you just want to develop some new skills. You just want to maybe, if down the road you decide you want to make a career change or move into management, you just want to become a more desirable candidate, or maybe you just want to learn something. Business cards. You should have them. You should definitely have a business card with you all the time if you can. And you can use Canva, Vistaprint, Shopify, design them right on there, have them mailed to your house. You can go to a local print shop if you're not comfortable designing them. And I would also say, even if you're not working in a library, I recommend that you get a business card. And instead of a job title, put your specialty or your specialization or what you're hoping to specialize in, just so it gives context to who you are. Also on your business card, I would include your LinkedIn, any kind of professional social media you would like people to see. And speaking of social media, you want to have your professional profiles ready to go. So when you create your LinkedIn, you can put your previous jobs, projects you've worked on, anything that you have going on currently, you can make posts about. So spend some time getting that set up because you're going to use that as a reference point to connect to people as well as email. I would stay away from using more recreational social media sites such as Facebook, unless, some people have a blog like about libraries and stuff like that, but they use Instagram and stuff, things of that nature for. But on a professional level, I recommend sticking to LinkedIn. You want to use a current photo or a headshot. You don't have to pay for headshots. You can take, if you have a good quality cell phone, take it with nice lighting, have somebody take it for you. And you want to separate your personal and your professional. And this is really important because you don't know what is going to turn people off to you. And I have an example recently, the Montana State Library Association withdrew from ALA because of a tweet. Okay. And at the time, I believe the person tweeting it didn't think it was going to have that kind of a consequence, but it ultimately did. So you don't know what you could say that could offend somebody or make them think that they don't want to work with you. So definitely separate and lock down the privacy settings on your personal accounts. If you have projects that you want to share, you can build yourself a little website or a blog, some kind of digital portfolio. If you're a library student, you can include projects that you've worked on in school. And you can also do a Google search of your name just to see what comes up, just to make sure that there's not something there that you don't want people to see. And finally, you want to prepare for events. So events they can be hard, they can be scary, especially if you're introverted. So what I recommend is doing some research ahead of time, making sure that the event that you're going to is going to have some value to you. So, if it's a networking event for agricultural employees, that may not be something that's a good fit for you. So you probably don't want to go, but you can research, any companies that are going to be there, libraries that might be there. So, and if that makes you feel more comfortable, I highly recommend doing it. You want to have some professional outfits ready to go. You should practice your body language, try not to stand with your arms crossed. It makes you kind of look unapproachable. So you can do some like stretches with your arms and open yourself up. That helps you kind of raise your energy levels and correct your posture. You want to have an elevator speech, which I will talk about in a little bit, and prepare some open-ended questions. So to touch on wardrobe, this is just an example on the left of things that I would say are good to wear to a networking event. You just want to, I would say business casual, like slightly elevated. You don't have to do a suit and tie. You can if you want to, but you can also pick up pieces here and there. If you're in library school and you're not, you don't have the budget, because I remember I was there to buy a whole new wardrobe. If you can thrift a couple things like a shirt here and there, or a skirt, a pair of pants, a button up, shoes, whatever it is, and then slowly kind of build your wardrobe that way. So you definitely want to stay away from like ripped jeans, pajamas, clothes with stains, things of that nature. Okay, so a lot of people said, I'm an introvert. How do I do this? It's okay. I believe in you. You can do it. So if you're an introvert, the virtual realm might be the best way for you to network with people. And so that could be if you find any meetings that are happening either in your community or throughout a professional organization or something of that nature, a virtual meeting is probably going to be a lot more comfortable for you because being an introvert doesn't mean you don't like people. It means that it's very tiring for you to be around people. And a networking event where there's people all around you and trying to talk to people you don't know and start those conversations, it can be very tiring for an introvert. I recommend you practice talking in front of the mirror. I do this because I tend to talk too fast. Sometimes I say a lot. So taking that moment to practice, you can record yourself so that you know what you look like, what you sound like, any adjustments you might want to make. And some open-ended questions are great. They're things like, what do you wish you had known about your position or this field before you started? Or what books or journals do you recommend that I read? And an open-ended question can take that attention off of you. It will put the attention back on them. It opens the door for them to speak. And hopefully that will lead to a more easy flowing conversation. So I think anybody having some open-ended questions can be good because, when you don't know somebody, sometimes the conversation just falls flat and that can be really uncomfortable. And then you want to have an elevator speech. So an elevator speech is about 30 to 60 seconds long. And the whole concept is that it can be used to sell yourself or your business, which in this case, it would be your library. And it should be short enough to say your entire statement in the duration of an elevator ride. And your elevator speech or pitch is going to have a set of components. So you have your opening statement. That's going to be your name and your field of work. Your specialization. So that's going to be the type of library you work in. So if it's public or academic, medical, etc., and the type of work you're interested in doing. So if you are interested in archiving, that's a place in your specialization. That's where you're going to put that. Your benefits. You're going to talk about what unique services can you offer? What kind of skills do you have? What makes you a step above the competition if you're job hunting? And you want to solidify that with an example of your skills through some kind of measure of success that you've had. So it even could be if you don't have a lot of experience, you're in library school, it could be something like, I got an A on this project. I like doing archiving, and in school when I did this, I got an A. Something like that. Some kind of just concretely adding to the reason that you're awesome. You want to end with a call to action. So you need to know what you're looking for in this moment. Are you looking for a job? Do you want a business card? Are you trying to do a program or add a service in your library? So you always want to end with that call to action because that's putting yourself out there. That's like the moment, that scary moment where you're putting yourself out there a little bit. And the hard part about elevator speeches is you got to do a humble brag. I'm not saying that you should say, I'm the best librarian ever and you need to hire me or you're done. What I am saying is you have skills and you need to sell them. You have to sell them to some other people. So the way you can do this is try practicing with friends and getting their feedback and taking some time to really think about, what do you have to offer? What are my skills? What are my goals? You got to do a little bit of that soul searching so that you can really go and confidently sell yourself when you're networking. Some of the things that you don't want to do, speak too fast, try not to ramble, but that's why having a kind of a guideline in your head can help you not ramble on and on during a conversation. You want to kind of try to keep your face positive. A smirk, you don't have to like grin the whole time, but keep your face like in a positive way and try to add some inflection to your tone. And you don't want to be negative. So an example of something you don't want to say is, I've been looking for a job for 6 months with no success, and I don't know if I'm even hireable or I have any skills. That just brings the whole energy of the room down. So you want to try to keep on that positive note of, these are my skills, these are my successes, this is why I'd be a good fit. So this is just an example of an elevator speech. So I have that introduction. I'm Dacy, I'm community engagement librarian. My specialization, I do programming and outreach, a benefit and an example. So I take data to craft programs that cater to my community. And then I won an award for one of my programs. And then the call to action is, if you're looking for somebody who can bring this experience to your team, please consider me. By the way, if you hear of any opportunities, I'd really greatly appreciate it if you kept me in mind. And fun fact, I actually wrote this using ChatGPT. So I said elevator pitch in ChatGPT and I gave them a bullet list of all these points and it wrote it for me. So if you are kind of having a hard time putting that into words, that might be something to help you get started. So I'm going to move into professional organizations. The training this morning talked a lot about professional organizations, and it was very in-depth. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I do want to do a brief overview. So a professional organization or association. Its purpose is to further the field of a particular profession. So anyone in that organization will work, want to work, or have previously worked in the same profession as you. So we're going to be talking about library-specific organizations. The biggest one that most people know about is ALA. And I just want to cover, this is what their dues look like. So students have a reduced fee, first year and second year both have a reduced fee, and so does support staff. I would definitely ask your employer if they have funds to pay for your dues. Especially if you're in a professional position, a lot of libraries will have some funding set aside for professional development. Then you have ALA divisions. Now, these are an additional due to join, and they're based on library type or work specialization. And through divisions, you're going to have things like continuing education, committees, mentoring and leadership opportunities, conferences, and they offer grants and scholarship. A lot of the ones that I have seen have been grants and scholarship to go to conferences. So for example, if you're part of the Public Library Association, PLA, their conference is coming up and they have opportunities to get scholarship money to travel and pay your fee for the conference. Roundtables are a little bit less formal than divisions. They're a little bit smaller and they're by interest, topic, and commonality. So the roundtables have a lot of discussion boards. Again, there's committees, mentoring and leadership. They don't usually have their own conference, but they do have programs at conferences or meetups at conferences. There's a lot of presentation opportunities. And again, they usually offer some kind of grant or scholarship to attend conferences. Also, roundtables cost less than divisions. So if you're on a limited budget, you might want to consider joining a roundtable, especially if you're just joining the ALA. I'm part of New Members Roundtable. That's a really great one to kind of get your feet wet about what happens in ALA. And I think it's like $50 to join. So it's not too much. I mean, it depends on your situation, but it may be easier to sell a division, a roundtable than a division if you're asking for funding from your employer. And then I'm in North Carolina, so the NCLA, North Carolina Library Association, they have a student fee of $15, and then they have a sliding scale based on your income. So a little bit about what NCLA offers. They have a leadership institute. There are committees, they have publications, continuing education, and their conference is coming up October 16th to 20th this year in Winston-Salem. And a great benefit of participating in a state library association versus a national library association is that when you make those contacts, you can put those immediately to use, right? Because you could meet somebody who's just a town or two over versus somebody who's states away. So that can be really beneficial for things like library services and job hunting if you don't want to move far away for a job. And NCLA and state library associations tend to just be more affordable all around, and their conference dues tend to be a lot lower. So again, that might be a good way to ask your employer about funding to go to this. And there are so many more. There is no way to cover all of them. Even in the awesome presentation this morning, there's so many of them out there. And so I included a link for the UNC School of Information and Library Science. They have a huge list of professional organizations. So if you're trying to find something that's more specialized, you can take a look there. Okay, so I would love to hear, any organizations that you have participated in, any professional organizations, any conferences you've gone to, and if you want to just share that in the chat so that you can kind of do a little bit of idea share there. And I'd also love to hear about what your experiences have been. So let's move into professional development opportunities. So you may have noticed that the associations and the divisions and the roundtables and all of that kind of had a lot of the same opportunities. So they all have committees. Committees are great for your resume because they demonstrate leadership skills. You have to make and use judgment and make decisions about things that affect members of an organization that are not just yourself. And on a committee, you're going to work closely in a smaller group. So if you really are not comfortable going out, putting yourself out there, working in this smaller group is a great way to make connections. People are going to really get to know you, and that's a great way to grow your network. You're going to be doing things like writing policy potentially or reviewing policy. Great experience if you want to move into management. You're going to make friends that you can meet at conferences, because if you've never been to a big conference, it can be very intimidating, especially if you don't know anybody there. So it's great if you have somebody that you know that's going to be there. You can go get coffee or something like that. And committees are voluntary, so you want to make sure that you have the time to take on that extra work. Conferences, I would consider more your conventional networking opportunity. They offer a lot of continuing education, workshops, lectures, presenters. Um, they offer a lot of free stuff, which is fun. If you've ever been to ALA, they just like usually have like a big hall, and you can get all types of free books and things of that nature. It's an awesome opportunity to travel. And you definitely want to ask your employer. And I wanted to just put a note out there to any directors or admin who are maybe in this training that, giving employees the time and money for professional development means that you're more likely to recruit and retain high performing talent. In this link at the bottom, it's an article from the Harvard Business Review. And there's a quote, and it says, a recent survey from Better Buys found that employees who get professional development opportunities are 15% more engaged and have 34% higher retention than those who don't. It can lead to more innovation and productivity. So if you don't have a budget, I would highly consider it. If you work at a library that doesn't have a budget, do some fact finding and present it as to why they should include it. Continuing education. I think this one's pretty obvious. It's to gain knowledge and experience. But you don't have to do this just through library training. So if your state library association often has a lot of training opportunities, like how NC Live does. However, if you are interested in administration management, you can go to your local community college and take a finance class. You don't have to do library specific training all the time. If you want to do marketing or design, or sometimes that's part of community engagement in some library roles, you can go take a design class at your community college. You can grow those skills. And as you're taking these classes, you're likely going to meet people who are in the same field or a field adjacent to make those connections. And when you're in trainings, I recommend that you participate, you interact, answer the questions in the chat. The more that you do that, the more trainings you go to, you may someday come across somebody. Oh, I remember you from that training. I had a girl reach out to me from library school, and she reached out on LinkedIn and she said, I just remember you because you always spoke up in class. So it's a way to make yourself memorable. North Carolina has a public library certificate that you can get. And there's some public library standards about how many training hours you should have. So you can look into that for your field or your state. A leadership program is an opportunity to meet people who are either in your field or a different field. They're typically set over a certain amount of time. So, for example, it could be a year long. They usually have a set number of hours, classes, or meetings that you have to do. They may have some kind of a final project. There's usually a mentor-mentee aspect. So you're going to be matched up with somebody. Again, there's a connection. You're going to be working one-on-one with somebody. And sometimes you'll meet like once a month or whatever the program is. You should definitely check out different regional leadership organizations. I'm not far from Charlotte, North Carolina. There are some organizations that are just for leadership. That's all they do. And then you should definitely also look into your state or county government. There's a lot of leadership programs there. So let's shift a little bit. We're going to talk about community networking and why we should do it and what kind of benefits it comes from. And this is going to be not necessarily just for somebody in a role like mine who's doing programs. This could also be for anyone trying to expand their services. This can cross public and academic and all different kinds of libraries. So I do say a big benefit is programs. I utilize relationships with local business owners, and part of how I recruit them is, hey, do you want to come do a program at our library? You can hand out business cards, and it can be mutually beneficial. They're going to bring their customers to the library, and hopefully our library patrons are going to become customers of theirs. You can attract new cardholders, which is great if your funding is based on the number of people you have in your county or city or whatever who have library cards. It's a really great way to evaluate what are your community's strengths and what are their needs. And this is really important if you don't want to spend your time duplicating work that's already being done in your community and creating things that people do not want or need. It gives your library a positive community image. So being present at these local meetings or reaching out to organizations, supporting local businesses, it all generates good press for your library. It shows that your library is collaborative and interested in the well-being of your community and going to be a good partner for community success. You can use this for student recruitment if you are from a university or college. You can partner with local schools and try to, retain maybe some of the local people of your community, especially if you're in a town where a lot of the young people are leaving. And you can use this to expand your library services. So I just want to give some examples of how you can do this. So if you're a university, you could partner with a local bookstore to offer textbook discounts. Or you could partner with any kind of manufacturing or tech companies in your area to create a study to hire kind of trade programs. You could offer meal cards so that they're taken at local businesses instead of just chain restaurants. And you could also do something like a library card share where people in your community who have a public library can go and utilize the collection at your college or university library. One thing that I did for our library is I went to a networking event, not library related, just a local networking event. And I met the American Heart Association rep for our area. We exchanged business cards and we started talking about ideas. Originally, I wanted to see if they could come and do blood pressure readings at the library. And instead, what we ended up doing was creating blood pressure kits that circulate for our patrons. So now we have 7 blood pressure kits that our patrons can check out for 3 weeks. The goal being that if you need to monitor your blood pressure, there may be a chance that you can't come to the library or go to the doctor. You may have to stay home. So that's just a service that came from a networking opportunity. So how do you get connected? Attend local meetings. So for example, you could go to a business association meeting and then you may find out what the needs of your local business owners are. Setting up a table at community events at your farmer's market, if you have a local apple festival, whatever your community does in terms of a big kind of event in your area, make sure that you take part in that. You want to invite organizations and groups to use your facilities, especially if you have meeting rooms. So you're at the farmer's market and you talk to, one of the vendors, or maybe if you can find the farmer's market manager, just tell them, we have meeting rooms and we have spaces. If you guys ever need a place to meet, just let me know the date and I'll see if it's available. You can offer to teach programs at other organizations. We have a women's center and I go periodically and teach a job skills class. And this one is totally optional, but I encourage it. But obviously this is completely up to you. But you can patronize local businesses in your spare time. So instead of going to Starbucks, I'll go to a local coffee shop. I kind of like to mention, oh, I work at the library, and just kind of like start creating that relationship. I did that at a new coffee shop we have, and now we're having our book club meeting there. So that's very exciting. And if you have nonprofit organizations in your community, I encourage you to ask if you can have a tour. It'll really give you a well-rounded view of what that organization has to offer, which means that in turn, you can help your patrons know what that organization has to offer. And while you're there, ask if they would like for you to take some brochures to put up in your library. That benefits your community, it benefits your patrons, and it benefits them because it's helping them get the word out. So this is very important. If you want to increase the visibility in your community, you have to leave your library. You cannot do all of this from your desk. You can send the emails, and you can try to make the connections. But if I met somebody and then they came and proposed a program idea to me, for example, I might be more likely to want to work with them because I know who they are. So getting yourself out of the library, attending some of those meetings, and if you're not comfortable just showing up, send an email. Hey, can I come to this meeting? I recently went to a PFLAG meeting and I sent them an email. Hey, I work at the library. I'm just interested in learning more about your meetings, about your organization. Do you mind if I attend? And they were like, yes, please come. We would love to have you. So don't be afraid to just reach out and see like if there's space for you at these meetings. There's a really good chance there is. Most of these organizations are trying to bring in more people. So I would love to do another idea share where you guys talk about an organization in your community that you could reach out to right now and how you think you could approach them. So you guys just drop that in the chat, and hopefully that spurs a little bit of a conversation and you guys can share ideas with each other. So let's talk about increasing your visibility. So you want to be seen, right? And in order to do that, you need to shoot your shot, okay? You need to put yourself out there. And this can be a little bit scary, but there's a lot of different ways that you can do this that might fit better for you. And what I recommend is proposing. You need to propose ideas. So I think if you are not comfortable with public speaking on a big level, proposing a poster presentation would probably fit for you really well. And the reason I say this is because you're not talking to a room full of people at one time. Most poster presentations, what they do is they put you in a big room and you set up your poster and people kind of circulate around and they'll stop and talk to you if they're interested in what your poster is about. And so that's really nice because number one, you don't have to start that conversation. Someone's interested in what you did, so they're going to come to you and start the conversation. And then it also gives you a talking point. You don't have to talk about yourself. You can talk about your work. So if you're kind of uncomfortable and you're not sure how to start those conversations, you can kind of hide behind your project. And also that opportunity is a one-on-one connection. I truly feel that one-on-one connections are a lot more meaningful than connecting with a big group of people all at one time, because it's easy to get lost in that fray. But if you have the chance to talk to somebody or a small group of people or work together on a more intimate level, there's a higher chance they're going to remember who you are and you're going to develop a stronger relationship. It's going to make that relationship easier to maintain in the long run. If you do want to go big, you can propose presentations on webinars and workshops, anything that your heart desires. I don't want you to be discouraged if you get no's. So if you're, shooting for the stars and you want to present at ALA or PLA, just keep in mind there's a lot of people who are proposing. But don't throw that proposal idea away. Save it, rework it, submit it again. And even if you get accepted and do a presentation, save that presentation, change it up, touch it up a little bit. What could you improve on? What could you add? And then you can propose that to other organizations. And a good way to start might be small. So you might want to propose a presentation to like NCLA, your state library association, instead of starting really big. That'll help you kind of get your feet wet and figure out what it's going to be like. If you don't want to talk to people at all, you can propose articles. There's a lot of different publications out there. You can, try like Library Journal or American Libraries Magazine, or see if your state library has some kind of a publication, some kind of a blog that you can be part of. So there's a lot of options out there, and they're not all around just having to talk to a bunch of people all at once and have the spotlight on you. I know that can be really intimidating. So I also say that you need to say yes. And I don't want to say this like in a, toxic positivity way. If you have the time and you can make this work, I highly recommend you say yes. If you're asked to sit on a committee, you're invited to lead a training, you're approached about writing an article, you're nominated for an award, you're invited to a job interview, anything that is an opportunity, say yes to it. Because every single one of those opportunities is a networking opportunity. It's an opportunity to meet new people. It's an opportunity to increase your visibility. Even if you aren't really, so say if somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, we're hiring, we might be interested in you, I would still take the job interview, because you never know what the job's going to be like. I think every job interview is good practice. They're very nerve-wracking, right? So the more you do them, the easier they get. And even if you think you might not be interested in a specific job, you should go talk to them. Like if you're applying for jobs and you're not sure if it's going to be a good fit, you should go talk to them, because it's really hard to know what a job is about from a piece of paper. You really kind of need to get in a room and talk to people. So I just want to give some examples of some of these ideas that I've talked about and how they have worked out in my personal life. So I did a program and I posted it onto LinkedIn. So one of my previous supervisors saw the post And then Devin asked this previous supervisor if she had any recommendations to present. And the supervisor recommended me. So you've got social media, you've got relationship management, leaving on good terms. All of those things contributed to me being here today. Another one is shoot your shot, propose, say yes, and professional organizations. So I submitted an idea for Programming Librarians Roundtable. They sent out a call for proposals. I shot my shot. I said yes, I proposed my idea. They invited me. I went and I presented at that roundtable for ALA 2018. That was my first time at a big conference. Conferences can be intimidating, but they can also be a lot of fun. It's like a bunch of librarians taking over a city. And there's something about that that's very like whimsical and enjoyable. And then another example, again, shoot your shot, saying yes. So I submitted another program to the Programming Librarian website, and American Libraries Magazine happened to see that program on their website. They reached out to me and asked if I wanted to write an article, which of course I was like, yes, I can't believe that you're emailing me right now. And I got published in the November, December 2022 edition. So I took these different concepts and I used them to increase my visibility, put myself out there, engage with opportunities, utilize those relationships that I had. But you can see these opportunities didn't all come from knowing somebody. The first one did. It was my previous supervisor. That's a network connection that I have. But the other ones just came from skill sets that I had. And now I have those to put on my resume. So it's not all just about talking to people. So I would love to hear, after talking about this, who is in your network now that you've had some time to kind of think about networking, learning about networking? Who do you think is in your networking, in your network? Similar roles at other libraries. Okay, local organizations, absolutely. Mentor, absolutely. And that mentorship mentee like relationship, I feel like, especially if you connect really well with your mentor, that can be a relationship for life. And it can go beyond, you can become friends. They can be somebody that you can always reach out to and ask, hey, I'm not sure how to approach this or what the situation is like. So if you can get, a mentor in your career, I highly recommend it. Nonprofits, absolutely. The one thing I will say about nonprofits is sometimes they can be hard to get your foot in the door. And it's not because they don't want to work with you necessarily, it's because they're a nonprofit. So they're probably understaffed and overworked, which I think a lot of us as library employees can relate to that. So my advice would be to be patient and to attend any meetings that you find out about because, for example, our college, we have Lenore Ryan University here. Every year, they do a meeting about resources in our community. And so when you go to that, now I've met somebody in person from this organization and this organization. And so they can put a face to the name of the person who's been emailing them, trying to get in touch. And that kind of helps grow that connection and make it like I said, if you see somebody and meet them, like, oh, okay, now this person's not a complete stranger. I know who they are. Let's work together. Retired coworkers, there's a great opportunity for mentorship. Other libraries in your system, schools, newspaper, media. That's a great point that I didn't talk about. Church groups, absolutely. And then your Chick-fil-A, sure. There's your individual network and your community network in a lot of ways. Your local historical society, yes, absolutely. A local networking group, previous coworkers. Yes. So these are all excellent examples of who is in your network. And you pretty much covered everything that I have, which is colleagues, supervisors, alumni from school, if you kept in touch with anybody. committee members, you join a committee, any organizations, recreational groups. So yes, you guys know now, you know what your network looks like. And you know that you have one. So maybe you thought, well, I don't know, I don't have a network, I don't know where to start. You already have a network. Utilize the people who are already in your, you already have those personal connections with. And that's all I have today. Again, this is my contact information. You all can feel free to add me as a connection on LinkedIn. You can just look my name up and connect with me. I'm happy. I will connect with just about anybody out there. Sometimes it's a little awkward to just like be like, here's this random person, I'm going to connect with them. But if they don't want to connect with you, they won't accept it, right? It's not the end of the world. So I encourage you, if you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do so. I'd love to celebrate your successes with you and share resources. Would be great. So we have some time if there are any questions. And I am going to kind of look at the chat now. Is the chat like blocking here? Sorry, I don't know how this works.
No, you're good. The chat isn't blocking. Yeah.
Never carry business cards. All right, you got to go get some business cards. They're not super expensive, and you can, choose in the quantity that you want to buy them in. Usually, the more you buy, the cheaper they are. But you can shop around. And like if you have Canva, you can design it and order prints all in one. So that's nice.
I'm so glad you suggested the idea of sharing things out on LinkedIn, because I find I'm always observing what other people are doing, and I never think to post things myself. So I feel like I've like added something to my to-do list today of like, oh, I should use that.
What you got going on, if you're doing the program. If I have some stuff on there that I made for library school, and there's a section of like documents and things like that, and you can just throw that there, and just here and there, just throw something up, because it's just like if you follow a business on social media and you go to their Facebook because you want to see if they're open that day or what their menu looks like. And their last post was from 2019. You're like, are they even open? Like, do I go there? What are they serving? If you're like me, I always look at the menu before I go to eat out. But that's a different example. But it's that relevancy. Are they active? Where are they? What are they doing? So you want to make sure that you're updating as you go.
Yeah. And one of the things that I loved was with that elevator speech, how essential that is, because I find I talk about NC Live all the time, whether I'm with librarians or with people, with friends, with people I've just met in a bookstore or at a restaurant asking me what I do. I always have that like 20-second elevator speech of explaining what my job is, because in the first couple of months of working at NC Live, so many of my friends were like, what do you do? And I'm like, no, this is it.
And that, I think that applies to all of us, right? Because how many of us have heard like, it must be so nice to read all day, and you're like, that's not what I do. Actually. So yeah, and it's something that's really great to fall back on too, especially like if you're introverted, you're nervous, just have those talking points in your head, and they're great for interviews. I highly recommend you can tailor it to an interview. Obviously, your call to action in an elevator pitch for an interview is going to be like, if you hear of a job, think of me. It's probably going to be like, I, would love to be a part of this organization. Like, I hope you consider me for this role.
Yeah,
Visual
absolutely.
Great. I'm going through the chat and I'm reading your comments. And I love that visual icebreaker comment that was made from Jessica. That's a great point. It is. It's a visual icebreaker. It's a great talking point.
Yeah.
Yay! Somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too is like kind of remembering some of those posters and presentations from conferences ago. Those can be a really great tool of reaching out to people. We have some folks who are participating in a panel discussion for our DEIA learning series. And I saw one of the panelists present years ago at a conference on food deserts. And some of the things that she mentioned about grocery stores and some of the legal restrictions that they have that like create food deserts was my talking point in asking her to be a part of that discussion, because it stuck with me and was so interesting. So I feel like that conference kind of tidbits of information can be really helpful in building connections with people.
Absolutely. And that is also part of relationship management, is if you can remember those little things, about a people, there's a good chance that something random's gonna stick in your head anyways, like something's gonna stand out to you. And even if it's like, how is your job at so and so library? And that's another way that doing research ahead of time can be helpful. If you see an event on Facebook and you see who's going and you know that person from LinkedIn, but you don't remember a lot about them, you can go and be like, where do they work? What do they do? I know you've got some talking points. You're preparing yourself for that encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one person in the chat sharing about connecting with AI. Atticus, I love that you shared this and how networking can be a way of like finding people with common interests and a common philosophy. If you haven't attended our ChatGPT AI tool series hosted by Denise Lewis, the second webinar in the series is happening in December, where we had a lot of attendees in our first session earlier this month. And so if you're looking to form connections with folks about AI, take a look at our training calendar. But yeah, I think it's a good point to think through, like, what is it you're interested in and ways to find that group of people. And I'm so glad that you all have joined us from inside North Carolina, outside North Carolina today. It really kind of stresses the point that the library community is not just location specific. We're all around the country.
Yes. And I know Atticus, you are talking about on a local level, but I would recommend checking out maybe the roundtables that
Mm-hmm.
ALA has, if you remember, because I think there is a technology-based one where you might find people with a common interest. Again, that's not necessarily going to lead to local regional ones.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're willing to be flexible on the librarian aspect, if you have any kind of tech group organization, anything like that in your community that you find, you could potentially, network outside of librarianship. If you can find something regional, some kind of event to go to, um, hopefully that helps. Depends on what's going on in your area.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, we are going to take a 45-minute break, and then we'll come back at 1 with our last session of the workshop. Thank you so much, Dacy. This was so practical and helpful, and I really appreciate you joining us for this.
Having me, it was wonderful.
Thanks so much. All right, y'all, take care. We'll see you in a bit.